All right, welcome back to another episode of BG Perform Reacts. Today we're going to be diving into topics, conversations, quotes, whatever I find on X. I'm going to interject my professional opinion on anything related to fitness, strength and conditioning, personal training, and health and wellness. So if you guys haven't yet and you are interested, please reach out, DM me the Coach Connect if you want to get some more information and you're interested in joining the Coach Connect. Just finished up module 2. We're getting into module 3, which is running the perfect session. We're diving in 1 call per week for 1 hour, and we have some homework that we give you on the side that goes along with each module to make sure you're progressing in your career and making sure you're amongst coaches who actually care and actually want to be coaches for the rest of their life, not just people who are trying to job hop or, trying to just find a way to make quick money and bounce, right? Like, we're all real coaches. We're all trying to make this our full-time thing, which most of us in the group are full-time coaches. Either we own gyms or we are like myself, who's a full-time online / personal trainer and rents a rent space out of a facility. But without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to start here because this video really interested me last week. So George St. Pierre, if you don't know him, he is considered by many as the GOAT of the welterweight division in the UFC. And the welterweight division is 170 pounds. And he comes from a different time inside of the UFC. And I think these statements kind of show the difference in where he was at in regards to when he fought versus today's UFC. So just to kind of dive into this a little bit, he says, I don't really believe in cardio if you're a combat athlete. I believe in efficiency. Even if you're in better shape than me, but I'm more efficient than you, you'll get tired before me. If you're an athlete, efficiency is your number one goal. You focus on skill, technique, and efficiency. And I retweeted this and said, efficiency equals oxygen uptake versus oxygen utilization. Regardless of skill, your body needs to be better at this process to see results in skill training. This is why high intensity anaerobic, quote unquote, base training isn't ideal for a lot of fighters at the highest level year round. I followed that up with also saying skill acquisition requires a few things: learning the skill, increasing the reps of the skill, completing the skill under fatigue, and then completing the skill in the actual competition setting. And to get to that point, you need a base of conditioning, AKA specific aerobic sessions, right? So, and what I think, I don't think he totally meant what the words were, which I know is kind of like a weird thing to say, but I think what he was really trying to talk about was saying, you need to train your sport, right? And in MMA, especially at his time, it was a very low level sport, right? There wasn't any and there's not really a lot of infrastructure or foundation in the UFC right now, but there was even less when he was fighting. And it's not to say that he wasn't great. He was the best among that time, right? I think the skill was a lot lower. I think that people weren't able to train as hard or as efficiently. I don't think there was the same frameworks around what there is now inside of training. And I think, overall the skill, again, wasn't as high, right? So he was a step above everybody in regards to skill, and his skill outweighed the other aspects of the sport at that time. And I think in today's game, where the skill for the most part is everybody's on par with most of those skills, obviously people are a lot better at certain things. And I think that goes to show the type of fighter somebody is. But I still think if we're talking about this right now, like, the difference in today's fight game is conditioning, and it's who can do what their game plan longer, right? And obviously there has to do with, biomechanics and actual like physical limitations of your body and physical, we'll call them advantages of somebody's body. But at the end of the day, if you cannot execute your game plan for the entire time, for the 15 minutes, for the 25 minutes, it's impossible to win, right? And what I'm trying to say is, I think in today's world, everybody is on par skill-wise, right? There's not a lot of things that other people don't know, that at least at the highest level, that other people don't know, right? It's really about physical capabilities, and are you physically capable to carry out the game plan, and are you, from a conditioning standpoint, are you able to execute on the game plan the entire time? Because, and I think you see this a lot with a lot of the people now. You see a lot of first round fighters that are great, right? Like, I've trained a couple people that were great in the first round, and they looked like the best fighter in their division at any given point in the first round. And then the second round and the third round come, And, there was other things that went into that, whether they're, because they're 9 to 5 fighters, which I like to call them, which is like they just train when it's convenient. But yeah, so I think this is probably taken a little bit out of context in regards to what he's actually trying to say. But I also think that conditioning is such an important piece in today's MMA landscape that if you don't have it, you are missing a huge piece of it, because you're not going to be able to execute on the skill or the game plan that you do have, right? And I think we're going to see this play out in Strickland versus Chimaev. And this is a very bold take, but I do think Strickland is going to wear down Khamzat. And I think Khamzat has shown good conditioning in the first couple rounds, but there's been 2 fights now against Gilbert, and I believe it was who was the second fight? Dricus, when he fought Dricus Duplessis. He was Kamaru. I really believe when he fought Kamaru, had there been 2 more rounds, that fight looks a lot different. And I think this fight's going to show it. And I think the type of training that I talked about that Khamzat does versus the type of conditioning and, sustainable output that Sean Strickland has is going to be a real problem for him. And I think we're going to see the first time where, Khamzat gets into some real serious problems, right? And I won't dive too much into that fight, but I think conditioning has a huge output to play. All right, post from Fred Duncan. I use the bench press with every athlete looking to improve speed, even soccer players and others who rarely use their upper body in sport. The bench isn't about specificity, it's about improving total output. Heavy upper body work gives us a global stimulus, neural, right? I don't know if there was more to this, but this is a really important point, right? So when we're talking about developing strength, or when we're talking about developing speed in the body, oftentimes a lot of people solely focus on the lower body. And the thing is, at the end of the day, in regards to speed, strength, power, all that stuff, it's a central nervous system driven thing. So it's recruitment. It's how many muscle fibers can we recruit? How fast can the central nervous system respond to the given desired output? And bench press is a great way, and it was a way that who really kind of made it popular was Charlie Francis, who trained Ben Johnson, who was one of the fastest people on earth at one point, or was the fastest person on earth. And what he would do, instead of loading the lower body and kind of damaging, I wouldn't say damaging, but like taking away from his lower body, he would bench very heavy a couple days out before the meet, and he would get that super compensation, which it's called, whereas we're creating the stimulus and then we're kind of recovering, and we start to see, as soon as we lift something super heavy, we start to see this dip in performance. But what happens is, after a rest period of like 24 to 48 hours, we start to see a uptick in performance. We actually can improve our performance based on the last event, based on that sort of thing, right? So what we do here is we're taking a heavy bench, high percentage bench of your 1 rep max, executing on the movement, and that's creating a global stimulus, a central nervous system stimulus that's going to allow us to actually recruit more muscle fibers faster and get us to be faster when we need it in the competition. So it's a great idea. More great stuff from Fred. Zach Goodman says, you don't need tons of supplemental work to drive up the squat or deadlift. If you're both squatting and hinging twice a week, your accessories are best spent on lower stress isolation movements. So we use a lot of lunges, hamstring curls, back extensions, weighted abs. Yeah. I think the mistake that a lot of people make in programming is the amount of exercises that they use. Keep it simple, keep it progressible, right? When you start to branch out and get too complicated, you end up missing the boat, and you're not able to fully progress for long periods of time. And that's where this idea of like, I need variation comes into play. And it's not variation you need progression, right? And if you're squatting and deadlifting consistently, you really don't need much else in regards to the accessory work outside of like the weak points in your squat and your deadlift. And that should be what you focus on. But outside of that, like he has here, lunges, curls, back extensions, weighted ab movements, quad extensions, adductors, abductors, that sort of thing. You don't need much, maybe 2 to 3 sets, higher rep range, and you're going to be good. So I like that a lot. This is probably one of my favorite tweets I saw, in a good way. But Joe Artari, a solid lift and start to the year for the boys. Quick glimpse behind today's sesh between games. Hand-eye coordination plus engagement to start today. General warm-up, jumps and slams, low rep, high weight lifts, simple yet effective. Now, this first part is really important. And I think There's something to be said about the warm up, right? And we're going to get into another tweet after this that I think is important to talk about. But there's a lot that you can do with the body in a short amount of time in regards to the warm up. The warm up should get us primed for movement, and it should get us ready to do the things that we need to do, right? With these types of hand-eye coordination and engagement drills, mentally, it allows us to kind of create energy and create a better state before training. And I think there's a lot of fun things you can get in quote unquote like games you can play in the beginning that get this type of crowd, like a younger crowd, someone who's looking to create this, quick, efficient session. These types of things get them moving, get them excited, get them, the energy up, and allows for a really good session while also really working on an important piece of central nervous system and hand-eye coordination, and really kind of driving home some adaptation early on in the session. Then you go through that nice general warm-up. You got jumps and slams. This is a really good direction of where everything's going. And then some low rep, high weight lifts. You can kind of see them lifts and how they're going. They look really good, moving explosive, really good form. I'm pretty sure this guy is based out of Rochester because he's friends with my cousin, but good work if you ever see this. And yeah, I like it a lot. Joey Heron, CSCS. So off season 2 years ago, triple broad jump measured 4x1 EMOM. So every minute on the minute. Hoop races, which you're seeing here, I'm assuming. So we're running around the hula hoops. 30-yard sprints, 4x1 every minute on the minute. Prowler races, so we're pushing the sleds. We do our dynamic, and then this. This takes 19 minutes, including rotating movements. Our class period gives us 30 minutes total. We rest way more than we move. That was the big reason I wanted to kind of talk about this. This is something that a lot of people mess up in training, and especially in this sort of training. You need to rest, right? And I see too many people who are just kind of running through 7 different movements back to back, no rest. And that's a good way early on in somebody's training career where you can get them to do a lot of work because they're not able to create very high levels of output. But you need to rest when you're doing this sort of thing, when you're really starting to make adaptation and you're really trying to make progress moving forward, right? You can't be doing high levels of output with low levels of rest. It's a recipe for disaster, or it's a recipe to not actually get what you need to get out of the session. When you're doing explosive movements, when you're doing heavy movements, you need to take at least 2 to 3 minutes, sometimes even more, to fully recover so you can execute on the movement again, right? And I think too many people want to make things feel hard rather than them actually being hard, if that makes sense. And a lot of the times you can make it feel hard when you're just not resting, or you're doing a bunch of things followed by, movement after movement after movement. And those types of training stimulus have their place, right? Like supersets are great. We talked about that last week. But when we're doing real training, real powerful movements, speed training, heavy lifting, we need to rest in between, because that's what actually gives us the ability to come back and say, okay, this is where I want to complete 5 heavy reps today, right? If you try to complete 5 heavy reps at 90% with 30 seconds rest, you're going to fail after probably the second rep. But if you complete 5 reps at 90% and you're resting 2 to 3 minutes, you're going to get 5 really solid reps in and a really good adaptation to the rest of your body and your central nervous system, and you're going to make progress very quickly. So make sure you're resting more than you're moving on most training, unless there's some specific conditioning stimulus, obviously, you're trying to achieve. There was a couple more I liked a little bit more. Here. So adaptation happens to survive the stress the body experiences. Multiple stressors, multiple adaptations take place. This is called general adaptation syndrome. The thing is, you can only accelerate specific adaptations up to a point, likely a small percentage. The drawback of eliminating other qualities is a big net negative. So as we start to train, right, there's things that occur and there's adaptations that occur depending on the stimulus we're trying to provide to the individual, right? The thing is, and this is where he kind of says this, you can't create massive bits of adaptation to multiple things, right? Like you can get some things better slower if you're doing a lot, but you can also hyper focus on something. But as you're focusing on one thing, the other things are going to tend to either stagnate or drop, right? So, and I think what he's trying to say here, just to kind of read this one more time, the thing is, you can only accelerate specific adaptations up to a point, likely a small percentage. The drawback of eliminating other qualities is a big net negative. And I think what he's trying to say here is when you fully focus on one thing, and I could be wrong if I am, sorry, but this is what I'm taking from this. When you're eliminating all these other qualities as you're trying to train, you're losing them, right? So, and when you specifically focus on something for an adaptation, you're really only going to be at a certain level, right? When you're a higher level athlete, there's only going to be a certain amount percentage wise we can actually increase that and get a strong adaptation from it. And we just need to understand that before we start diving into 4, 5, 6 different types of movements that we're doing inside of, a session, right? So when you specify, like, this is the type of stuff we talk about inside of fight training when we're actually trying to prep someone for a fight. We want to start to work on those small little details that are going to get them ready to execute on the game plan. But in the off season, we're trying to work on all the underlying issues or weaknesses and strengths that we have and trying to hit as many of those as possible. So let's see. Let's talk about... I like this tweet a lot. So there's a tweet from, looks like Zach Brannon, his name. So Chris Peterson on why great coaching starts with leading yourself first. You can't give away what you don't possess. Coaches often ask how to develop better habits, focus, self-awareness, and resilience in their players. The uncomfortable answer is that it starts with you. You won't be able to sustainably lead people past the work you're unwilling to do yourself. And that is so important. And we talk about this a lot in the Coach Connect, and it's filling up your bucket, filling up your cup, so you actually have something to give to someone. And I think this goes along with training. This goes along with personal time. This goes along with your relationships, that sort of thing. If you're not training, if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not focusing on time to unwind and become the best coach you can be, there's only a limit that you can give. If you're not studying, if you're not pushing yourself, if you're not going out and being uncomfortable, there's only so much, and you're only going to be able to take someone so far, right? Because you don't have the experience that gets you to that next point. And that's why myself as a coach, I'm so big on showing up. I'm so big on doing the necessary work to get to the next point. I'm so big on pushing myself and being uncomfortable in certain situations. And that's what's gotten me to the successes that I've had as a coach. It's because instead of sitting there and questioning, all the things that could go wrong, I'm out there going and trying to be wrong, essentially, like almost prove myself right every single time I go out there, because there's always negative thoughts, right? But what I'm trying to do is create this better process. And the more that I have access to, whether it's information, physical capabilities, emotional capabilities, the better I can lead someone, the better I can lead a client, the better I can get them to their results. And that's why this is so important to understand as a coach. You can't give away what you don't possess. And that quote right there should be etched into your brain and following it every single day, because again, you can't help someone if you don't have access to it in some capacity. So great stuff there. Let's do one more. Let's go back down here because I think there was one I liked. This one, yeah. So, all right. So do not underestimate the power of one stimulating set done 2 times a week. Literally one top BMT set. I'm not sure what BMT stands for. Every 72 hours on the same movement pattern. Track the progression from session 1 to session 6, 3-week wave. You will be amazed at how little it takes. And I'm not going to focus on this tweet. I'm going to focus on the idea of you don't need that much to create adaptation in your body, right? And I think what's really important is we start to understand that fitness isn't that complicated, right? Fitness isn't something that requires you to change or, it requires sacrifice to integrate it into your lifestyle, but it doesn't require that much, right? If we're working out 3 times a week, or in the same concept here, doing a couple difficult sets per day and doing that in the right capacity with the right movements, you're going to see progress, right? You're going to see progress. And it's so frustrating sometimes we have to explain this to individuals, is that people have this kind of preconceived notion that fitness is this grandiose thing that has to be so specific and has to be done in a certain way. And it doesn't. It just has to be done. It has to be consistent, and you have to do it for a really long time, and you're going to see results, right? And it's the same concept here. It doesn't need to be 10 sets of 10. It doesn't need to be German volume training. It doesn't need to be 1 rep max. It doesn't need to be Fran. It just needs to be show up, do your workout, hit the reps, hit the sets, get in, get out, recover, eat well, and you're going to see progress, right? So I just think this concept is so important. And it, again, you don't have to underestimate doing the minimum effective dose. You can go more if you're capable and you're ready, but doing the minimum effective dose, the most amount of, or the least amount of work possible to get the most amount of return, adaptation and return, that's where you're going to stay consistent. That's where you're going to stay sustainable, and you're going to be able to do this for a really long time. So I think that's it for this week. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. As always, if you have any questions, please reach out. If you do want to work with me or are interested in working with me as a coach or in the Coach Connect, you can reach out to me. You can DM me Coach Connect for Coach Connect information, or you can hit the link in my bio, my link tree, or the link below on this video, and check out my new video, The Standard. This kind of gives you a little bit of a breakdown into my new program called The Standard, which is my VIP program, and it'll take you right to my offer doc where you can check out all the options and everything you need, and then you can reach out to me with the option you choose, and we can figure everything out, get started, schedule our consultation, and go from there. You can also check out my website at www.bgperform.com/training, and you can check out everything there as well. I appreciate you guys as always, and we will see you guys next time. Peace.